We're really excited to have everyone here. Very exciting topic about cybersecurity and its resilience. You're going to learn a bit about the tools that we use. You're going to learn a bit about insurance, very exciting. Ryan's going to keep you up, he promised me. So DP Solutions, many of you know us as your managed IT service provider. What we do is obviously help our clients with support of their network. What we really want to do is help them be proactive, strategic around their systems, right? So we like to have these events to be able to talk through and be able to give you good information and ultimately help guide your business so you achieve success, right? So this is information to be able to do what you need to do, understand where the risk is, and how to be resilient, okay? So I did that one off the cuff. I got resilient right off of it. So again, I'm Ken Goldstein. I'm VP of Client Strategy. I lead the new sales as well as the Client Strategy Advisor team, which is the folks that are the kind of the business advocates to you all and help you with your strategy, road mapping, budget, and things like that. But we have a great panel here. My buddy Ron Connolly, VP of Technical Operations for DP Solutions. He's going to walk you through managed services, some of the tools that we use, why they're important. Then we have X-Man right here from BlackPoint. BlackPoint is an incredible tool that is the cornerstone of our Security Plus package, which Ron will kind of talk through and why it's important. Helping to kind of identify, not kind of, I hate when my guys say kind of. It absolutely gives us visibility into things that we wouldn't have visibility to be able to manage you better, respond to things more quickly. And then we got Ryan Dunn here over at Rhone Risk. This is, I think, a really interesting part of the conversation with insurance. Ryan doesn't think it's necessarily exciting, but we put a lot of time and expense into the tools that we're using. So what's the benefit of that, right? So on one side of it is, what are the loopholes around insurance, right? Where if you do have an incident, you feel like you have good insurance, and it turns out you don't, right? On the other side of it, what's my return of investment on all these things besides mitigating my risk, right? So it could be lower premiums, right? So part of the conversation is around how do we protect and mitigate, because you're never going to eliminate, and how do we, on the backside, hedge our bets around what we're protecting with insurance. It's kind of that break the glass conversation. So it's really, really important to have a kind of well-rounded conversation about security, the resilience, and tie it to your business. So from an agenda standpoint, each panelist is going to give a 10 to 15 minute presentation. Now I will say we're going to do questions at the end, but if there's something relevant that you have a question about, you can raise your hand and ask the question. At one point we may say, we'll put a pin in it, and let's talk about that later, or it could be something we dive into, because we never know which direction it's going to go. Like, we have a plan, but if it's something more interesting to you all that you want to dive into, we got the experts here in order to do it. Why don't we get started? We'll start off with Ron. He's going to go do his thing, and then I'll probably interject with jokes here and there, even though I'm on a joke strike. So anyway, for your benefit. Ron?
I'm not as funny as Ken, so sorry. Yes, I will gladly admit that. Good morning, everybody. How's everybody doing? So I'm going to go over just some of the, you shouldn't have that slide up, that's who we are. Yeah, that's us. Okay, a little late. That is still me. So I'm going to go over some of the best practices. I want to spend most of the time let X and Ryan go over what they do. We have a very good partnership with BlackPoint, part of our Security Plus program. If you're already with us, you've probably seen something like this where it talks about our Security Plus package. If you're not with us yet, why? Get with us right here. But this talks about last year we came back from one of our conferences and we spent a good 6 to 8 months working on a package that would give all of our clients a baseline security so we didn't have 200 some odd this security here, this there, this there. We wanted a baseline. So we went with NIST 800 as our framework. It is not going to make you compliant or anything like that. It'll help you become compliant, but it's not going to make you compliant in any way. It checks off a lot of boxes and everything. And then near the end, when we were about to roll it out, we came across BlackPoint, and it put everything back on hold for about 3 or 4 more months until we integrated that. And BlackPoint's been game changing with how we integrate everything. Those boxes for NIST and other compliances that we check off with our package, BlackPoint does doubles it basically. So it's been really game changing for us. So what we're going to go through is just in general best practices. Not going to go in depth on any one topic or anything, other than some of the best things things we've been seeing in the last few years, and some common threats that are out there right now. So who does not have MFA enabled on their environment right now? Don't put your hands up. If you do, don't put your hands up. Anything we have in the IT world or in the security world, we call boom, being when something is found. So a compromise is found, the bad threat or the threat actors get into your environment, whatever it happens to be. Boom is when it's recognized. Left of boom is preventative. MFA. Everybody has to have MFA. That's just a no-brainer there. You have it on your bank accounts, you have it on your phones, your emails, everything. If you have, that's the core thing of our Security Plus package is MFA. For every single account, MFA. Whether you use your text messaging, an app, you can use the Google Authenticator, or whatever, as long as you have MFA enabled on your account. Big thing with MFA these days is CMMC. Any GovCons deal with CMMC? The NIST no longer requires you have a password length or complexity anymore. Did y'all know that? Anybody not know that? Used to be you had to have 8 characters, uppercase, lowercase, complexity, whatever. Has to change every 60, 90 days. That's not a thing anymore. They did away with that. As long as you have MFA enabled. You can have your password as password, as long as you have MFA. You're perfectly fine. I still don't recommend password, but you can have that. So MFA is a must. Next-gen firewalls. If you have an office environment, you need a firewall. If you're at home and you have an office environment in your house, you need a firewall. Your Comcast, your Verizon plugged into the wall, that's not a firewall. Any half-decent hacker can get in those in 2 seconds. You need an actual firewall. So a next-gen firewall would be best. EDR and MDR, so we primarily use Sentinel-1. It's your EDR, your antivirus. MDR is primarily BlackPoint. Those are the ones that protect your device itself, protect your emails, protect your, with BlackPoint, which Ryan will get into, protects your emails while you're traveling, your laptops while you're traveling, all that stuff. Patch and vulnerability management. Who's been going through the Windows 11 upgrades lately? Who's been seeing all my emails lately? They've been fun, haven't they? We've upgraded roughly 2,500 in the last 2 weeks from Windows 10 to 11. We do scripts. That's a patch. It's nothing more than a patch. Patching is just like it sounds. You're patching a vulnerability, okay? If you're Windows 10 and you're missing a whole bunch of patches and everything because you work at night and you keep saying no patches, you are becoming more vulnerable as each day goes by. So if you have a patch window, let us do the patches. We can work with you on how we do those when we do them. If you're not with us, work with your ITs. You have to do patches because the more you skip those, the more vulnerable you're going to be. Zero trust, just like it sounds. Don't trust anybody. And that's, saying, we were talking earlier about Ken being with the new sales and everything, and sales and ops don't always mix in industries and everything. Trust Ken explicitly, but when it comes to security, I don't trust him at all. Because I can't. I have to trust the system to, I have to trust the system to keep him from doing something stupid. That's just reality there, whether it's intentional or not. Cloud security and data encryption. This is becoming more of a common thing now. So cloud security, primarily based around encryption. Most systems these days, EMRs, whether they're medical, whatever, they're all encrypted of some form. If they're any type of GovCon or anything like that, and you have a FedRAMP, it goes to a lot more encryption and everything, but the cloud security is if you log into a portal and just put in your password, Ron, a password, and you're in the wrong environment. Make sure MFA is available. If not, might want to look for a new environment, because that's very hackable. In training, security awareness training, primarily we use a solution called KnowBe4. It's part of our baseline package for Security Plus. The security awareness training, they're good. Mike Bisonet, if y'all are with us now and you get our security awareness training, you've probably seen his emails. He will send them out and they randomize them, and AI is in use now. So it looks like it comes from me to Ken. Hey, where's that copy of that invoice you sent me? And we want to see if Ken clicks on it. Ideally, we want him to click on it so we can train him how to do it. In transparency, before we started doing this new method of doing security awareness, we had a click rate of about 40–45%. Now we're down to under 5%, a quarter. That's phenomenal. So the industry average that we have, we're seeing still in the 15–20% range for clicks. The higher that is, the more your people are clicking stuff and entering your passwords and stuff. All right, then we got Boom. Boom is, again, it could be anything. It could be a user calling in and say, hey, I see some weird stuff on my file explorer. I see my computer, someone's controlling my computer. It could be an alert from Sentinel-1. It could be an alert from BlackPoint Cyber or whatever. It could be pretty much anything saying that something's wrong. All right, most common thing we see is the alerts from a BlackPoint MDR or something like that. They call us saying, hey, look at Aaron's computer. We found impossible travel. He was in California, and 5 minutes later, he's in New York. Or international travels a lot. We can lock them down. Why is this person logging in from North Korea? That actually happened this morning, by the way. Somebody logged in from North Korea. That's obviously a bad thing there, so we took action on that. With the SIM and the threat intelligence, that is more log pulling. It's passive and active, but more on the passive side where you're pulling logs, you're looking at logs, looking for trend patterns and everything, is why is Aaron always logging in and doing bandwidth traffic at 3 in the morning? And he's normally sleeping. So we pick up on that, and we dig into it, we see that, oh, that's not actually Aaron, that's somebody imitating Aaron doing bad stuff on the network. Or why is the bandwidth so high at 8 o'clock in the morning? Oh, that's our patch window. That's legitimate, so we can work those out. User and entity behavior, again, same thing as what's going on. Is that your normal thing? Does Sam normally come in at 7 o'clock? Why is he coming in at 5 o'clock all of a sudden? Or why is he logging in at 5 when I know he drives from wherever at 6 o'clock? So it's those patterns we look for. And AI is becoming the new, it's just blowing up. If y'all haven't been keeping up with AI, start Googling AI a little bit. It's becoming a thing. It's really starting to take over a lot of stuff. It's helping on the security side. Now on the security side, I'm a little on trusting AI because it's AI. I've watched Terminator, so it can happen. So I'm not fully sold on the whole AI side when it comes to security and protect environments. I still want humanized looking at logs, looking at certain things. Now AI does help a lot and it weeds out a lot of stuff, but we still get humanized on things. So then we got Boom. This is where we figure out what happened. We stop the bleeding. If you've been with us, I don't recognize anybody's names on an incident we've had since I've been with the company, but I'm not going to ask permission. I'm going to go up to Matt's computer or server or whatever. We're going to yank the plug. Sometimes literally yank the plug. We're going to stop the bleeding, to stop the virus from spreading, the ransomware, or anything, whatever it is. We're going to stop it, and then we're going to tell you what we did and why. You're going to be upset, but then when I tell you why, you're going to be like, okay, thanks, because we're protecting you. At the end of the day, our primary role is to protect your environments, not to quote unquote make you happy. We want to protect your environment. And by doing that, we'll make you happy. So some of our Boom stuff, we have our automated incident response, stuff like Sentinel-1 kicks in, quarantines the ransomware, SOC gets in, starts alerting things like that. It's all automated. Our BDR, backup disaster recovery, if we have to go do a restore, you have ransomware up to midnight last night, we go back to 6 p.m. the night before, we do a restore, we collect your data all back and everything, and you're up and running again. Depends on the environment you have. That can take a few hours. It can take a few days. Depends how much your environment and your data. Forensic and root cause analysis. This is where we basically, whether we do some of it or we work with a forensic company does it, this is where we dig deep into the weeds. We peel all those layers back. What happened and why? Don't care about the opinions. I want to know what the data tells me. That's exactly what we want to know. How that came in, how the bad guys came in. They came in through here. Oh, Ken didn't have MFA. Go a little bit farther. Why? Go a little bit farther. Why? We keep looking for why it happened. Security awareness training, we go back to that. If it's something simple, Sam, you sit right in the middle. Sit right in the middle and you're sticking out. I mean, come on. So if Sam clicks on something and he doesn't have MFA, or he does something, he lets the malware into our system, I want to go, why? Why did you click on that? And then train Sam on not to do that again. And then we got compliance regulatory support. If you have anything like NIST, HIPAA, or anything like that, you have certain regulations you have to require, or they require you to report it. So NIST, you have 72 hours from the date of, or from the time of notice that, basically write a boom. From boom, you have 72 hours to notify everybody that, hey, we've had a possible compromise or whatever. What's not on here is can kind of go into the root cause analysis, where we're going to say, you need to contact your attorneys, at least make them aware. And you also need to contact your insurance carrier, because your insurance carrier is going to have specific requirements. Read that fine print very, very well, because if that fine print says that if one account doesn't have MFA and you got compromised, they might not cover you. So read the fine print of those. That's not to scare you, and that's not to push. That's, all right, and so how we do all that stuff is we keep you from having a boom incident is these flyers, which are also in the back. The advanced network hardening, we go into your tenant and also Google when we just tighten it up. We plug all the holes, we lock everything down. We don't make it harder for y'all to do any work. We just make it harder for the bad guys to get in to do the work. So if you didn't even tell our folks a while back, we enabled external tagging. It's a little annoying thing that pops up. This user is external. Did y'all notice it's different now? We just did that, and it's I don't like that. Okay, well, you'll get used to it in a few days, and they do. We're protecting the environment. The infrastructure hardening, if you have a firewall, which again, you're supposed to, we go in and we make sure we lock down. We go in and review these. We look for ports. A lot of software we use, well, like QuickBooks, for example, we use port like 556 or whatever on your firewall, and you do away with QuickBooks. Why is that port still open? That's just a vulnerability. We go in and we plug the holes. We look at stuff like routing. Why is there a route to China that was created for some reason? Might have been legit, might not have been legit. So MDR, again, we use BlackPoint, so primary one. I'll let Ryan get into that. Phishing, know before training, vulnerability testing. This vulnerability testing and reporting is not a pen test. It is what we kind of consider a quasi-pen test, or just a vulnerability scanner. We test your network and your tenant inside and outside. So we're not poking holes trying to break in. We're just seeing if there's any holes there. Okay. And then we have a lot of cyber forms. Anybody filled out a cyber insurance form in the last year? They're like 20 pages nowadays. 2 years ago, they're a page. Those things are a pain to do. Ryan and Shova do, or Aaron and Shova do those, so they know what those are like. So we help with those forms, and we also do a VC. So as a part of your QBRs with the CSAs, one of the QBRs, we'll have somebody from the security team attend with them and have security, nothing but security road mapping, work with the CSAs, how to just roadmap the next 6, 12 months or whatever for security related stuff, and the CSAs will take over doing non-security related stuff. And those are a lot of the tools we use, just some of them. And right in the middle is BlackPoint.
Yeah, well, so just to kind of wrap up from a practical standpoint, I think the big thing is, I always call this the kind of the cross your fingers conversation. It's like, oh, my IT company or my IT team is taking care of anything. We don't have anything to do with it. I think the point of it is, we always get the question that's asked. It's like, aren't you monitoring already? It's a degree of it. It's like we have more visibility, we have more insight, which means we can provide more information to you all and your company, because you know how you're working, right? So when we're able to tie the information that we provide to the way you're working to help mitigate the risk, that's really where the pedal hits the metal there. So when Ron's team is doing their vulnerability and they're joining those meetings, that's where you get involved to say, hey, are we using it properly? Are we exposing things that our clients or our staff is doing? Is there any sort of shadow IT going on with tools? We're giving you that visibility so you all can make decisions about what's best, right? So we're going to patch everything. We're going to make sure it's as secure as possible, but we're also going to collaborate with you as partners to be able to mitigate that risk even more. So it's an important part of that conversation. So thank you. Awesome. All right, next we have X, and then there's Y, just so you know. Okay. Anyway, I'm back with my stripe here.
Well, hello everybody. I'm Xavier Salinas, and I used to have black hair apparently. That's an old picture. That's from my LinkedIn. I got to update it one day. And so I'm the Chief Innovation Officer at BlackPoint Cyber. Funny enough, it's kind of weird. When I first started at BlackPoint, this is my 10th year there, no software, no nothing. The building right there you see is where we built everything. So it's kind of funny to come back here and look at that building again and be like, oh, I spent, countless hours building out how to catch hacker tools, software, all that fun stuff just right over there. So it's kind of funny to see it all over again. So yeah, I'm gonna go over here a little bit about, kind of the threat landscape out here right now. Kind of in the eyes of our own MDR service, which is protecting all these partners and you guys by extension from that. So it's very geared towards what's hitting, our MSPs and MSPs clients that we all work with. We'll go a little bit about what is cybersecurity right now and what just installing AV is not good enough anymore, right? Just kind of a little bit of background behind that one, and then a little bit about AI, because my current role right now as the Chief Innovation Officer is really driving AI and ML opportunities inside of our MDR service. And it's always gonna be human assisted. There's no, I had to fight, I can give you guys a funny story about that too, we get the, our investors and board members are like, AI SOC, let's just do AI SOC. I'm like, you can't do AI SOC because what's going to feed back into the training models, the AI, it doesn't work. You got to have humans in the way, and that's why we've been really good at it, because we can feed in everything from our data, but also the actions our SOC takes. So we can deep learn all this stuff, and we've been just continuously bringing out models so we can be faster. And then by extension, DP solutions can be faster at protecting your guys' accounts, whether it's your identities, your endpoints, and all that other fun stuff. So let's get into stuff that'll make you sleep well. So this is the 2024 cyber threat landscape. This is kind of what we saw last year in our SOC services. The big one being is these 31 threat notices relating to critical vulnerabilities. These are vulnerabilities like, everyone's probably here. You guys familiar with CVE scores? There's a new CVE 10 every damn day, I feel like. But it doesn't really relate to how important that is to you. So this is where we kind of come in with our SOC services and we'd be like, okay, there's a CVE 10 out there, but most of our clients, because we can see everything, and our partners don't use the software. So that's not really a CVE 10 in their eyes, right? It's kind of a subjective number sometimes. So these 31 threat notices are things that are actually you have to now, that's what? 2.5 a month that are coming out, that we have to have, our great partners to compat you guys' networks out. And these are ones that are prioritized critical for you guys. Ivanti software, Cisco's, Fortinet firewalls. These are the stuff you guys, everyone has some of these types of stuff in there. Microsoft, of course, right? Especially Sonic Wall and RMM tools, because RMM tools is kind of how they manage all your guys' computers out there. Any vulnerabilities on that, it could even be a vulnerability. Maybe CVE says it's a 7. It's a 10 in their eyes, because that's how they make all their money, is the RMM tools and how to remotely manage your tools. So it was really, it's wild, just the increasing attack surface that we see in tools that MSPs use. I was on a podcast probably 4 years ago, and I was like, why aren't hackers using RMM tools? It's pretty much a hacker tool, right? You got to think about it. It kind of blends the line of a RAT, a remote access tool that hackers used back in the day. And then all of a sudden they started using them a little bit. I was like, oh no, hopefully they didn't listen to my podcast. I got to stop giving ideas out there. Onto those. The next one is pre-ransomware activity. Now this is where you're teetering on that line. Ron talked a lot, which is really good, about left and right of boom. I'm a huge fan of thinking, the two sides of it. This is where you're teetering on that line of left and right. you're holding the match to the bomb, right? Onto that. That's what pre-ransomware activity is. That's when they're actually, maybe they got into your firewalls, they got someone's credentials somehow. They found your VPN endpoint. They found a service account. You know what MFAs are service accounts. Service account can log into the firewall. All of a sudden, they're in. Service accounts usually privileged. They're in, and now they're starting to poke around and open up doors, shake door handles, and look around. That's the most common things we really detect on the endpoints in our SOC services right now. And that's the hardest part actually to detect, right? Because you have to, it really blurs the lines between, is this an administrator? Is this one of DP Solutions admins coming in and running a port scan? Or just a hacker trying to port scan? It gets really finicky, and this is where we gear a lot of, speaking of human assisted, or AI to assist humans, we geared a lot of our AI at this to detect anomalies of this type of activity happening. So if they never port scan, they never RDP into this machine, this account never has done that, I don't need a human to look that down. We can aggregate that all up and escalate it to our SOC for them to dig in and threat hunt more. And that's really kind of how we've been building a lot of this stuff out, because that's the hardest, I think, out of everything here, it's the hardest thing to detect is pre-ransomware activity. It's not super hard to detect when the malware's launched, But when the malware's launched, you've already missed 20 steps. Like, they don't just launch malware. They do a lot of poking around to get into there. Kind of went over the other one, tactics and trends. The big one's identity compromise. I mean, it's just constant. You'll see it's probably going to be a running theme throughout all this threat landscape is the identity. And I'm talking about like cloud identities, any type of identity. I just talked about, a service account identity. Identity is a big, big issue right now, especially as we become very diverse out of working from home, working from office. There's no longer controlled, like, all my IP should be coming from this building. Nah, it doesn't work anymore. Not in 2024, definitely not 2025. So yeah, we saw a lot of that AI-powered phishing tactics, big one. Used to get emails, it sounded broken English. No more. You don't see that anymore. They can just type it into ChatGPT and it'll make it sound perfect English. Let's see. I'm trying to get too nerdy with some of these ones. They're getting really good at bypassing EDRs too. These days, a lot of EDRs. If we're talking traditional EDRs, not to knock SentinelOnes or CrowdStrikes and all those out there, but they're automated tools, right? Anything can be bypassed, trust me. I know how to bypass RO to EDR like 5 times. Anything can be bypassed if you have the right privileges, right? But they're getting really good because there's a lot of targets on those things back. So they're getting really good at bypassing traditional EDRs and doing fileless things. Cloud exploitation. It's kind of maybe, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the word, the AITM, it's adversary in the middle. And that's actually where they steal, they pretend, they make you log in with your MFA token, and then they steal what gets generated when you put your token in. A session ID gets generated. Now that session ID has a time to live. If they can capture that in the middle of that, they have an already authenticated ID that they can go take that token and then just use it somewhere else and log in as you. No logins needed, no more MFAs needed, no nothing. Some they have times to live. So some of them have like 4 or 8 hours, but that's plenty of time for them to make a backdoor account, malicious inbox rules. Huge rise in that. You know why? Because everyone uses MFA. So, of course, there's a huge rise in that because that bypasses MFA. And I spoke a little bit already about legitimate tool exploitation. Huge amount of it. I mean, we've had 5 million unwanted applications blocked. And these are just applications that don't need to run in any environment. We have an application control software out there. It's a managed one. It's just things you should never run. And if it is getting run, it can go to our SOC and it can be verbose. It's not like a typical application control where it's like, let's deny everything and it becomes a headache. This is stuff that should never be ran out there. So, I thought I was going to change my computer. Ready for it on that one. So 2025. So the trends are also continuing here. So here's a little bit of the stats that we're seeing in our SOC with what we do right now. So right now we're running about 18 minutes time to resolve, which is pretty great. We like to hover between the 20 and 15, which is pretty amazing because when we put an alert in front of a SOC analyst, it's like, oh my gosh, this is like, you better act because this is something bad. We don't send too many false positives to our SOC. We really control our detection pipeline. So if we can do 18 minutes, that's crazy fast to like figure out that activity that you saw back here on the previous slide of all the ransomware activities and just dogging down and threading all that out just to figure out, is this bad or good? So we've been running 18 minutes on that one. We did 450,000 alerts of those in 2024. That's a lot of alerts to do. And this is the biggest one that we saw that it's continuing up. It keeps trending that way. 950 of those about 950 resulted in like an endpoint on-premise incident. That means hackers on a computer. 18,000 of those were identity related. So this is CR, it's part of our cloud response. This is our identity, ITDR, MDR for 365 or Google Workspace. 18,000 of those were actually compromised accounts. So it's the identity is huge right now. And I could tell you, I wish we had a stat. Maybe we'll have to do this one time. We should have a stat of how many of these actually had MFA enabled or they thought they had MFA enabled. You have to have it on, but nothing's a silver bullet when it comes to these trade crafts out there. And then also too, we actually integrate with traditional EDRs out there all the time, like SentinelOne. We'll take all the SentinelOne alerts in. We'll use those. It's great because more data the better, right? For our SOC, it lets us give a little stuff, makes us faster. Maybe the endpoint has a little more information than the endpoint can up front. We bounce them off each other. We do a lot of orchestration on them. But 73% of those on-prem alerts, or 27% of them actually were only talked about with the traditional EDRs. And then 73% of them, we detected that heuristically kind of odd activity before a traditional like AV EDR automated solution can see it. So you can see there's a disparity going back to the threat landscape of how they're really figuring out how to bypass traditional endpoint tools. Doesn't mean you can't have them. I would never tell them to fly blind and not have an AV or EDR. It is a great thing to have, but hackers will always evolve. And the upside about our EDRs, it's backed by the MDR, our SOC. We can run it like in ultra verbose mode, right? Because we have 50 analysts looking at this 24/7, so we can run it so verbose and so well that we don't. It doesn't matter. Like they don't have to field any alerts. We're really tuned into doing that, so we can crank up the verbosity and figure out there's odd things going on. And we can see it, and we're continuing to see these vulnerabilities come out constantly, especially the Clio one, the file transfer tool. It's kind of a little bit more of a larger one, but some people, will maybe in here have ran the Clio file transfer. Oh my gosh, when I get to the ransomware trends, they annihilated that vulnerability to exfil data and ransomware and extort things. So there's going to be more. They're just hammering. I feel like every other day there's a Sonic Wall or FortiGate vulnerability out there. That's really bad. So they're just going to continue hitting that front of the line there. EDR evasion too is probably the most common thing we're seeing now, and we've been doing a lot of research into how they're evading common tools and how they're looking at things, and they're at the level now where, if you ever heard of a Windows driver, so a driver is something that can interact for user mode, like when you log in and do your stuff, you're a user. Well, there's another level below that called the kernel, and that's what the whole operating system runs on. And usually a Windows driver runs so it can live in that kernel space and give applications in your user space access to the kernel part. They got to be signed by Microsoft. They got to be legit. They have to have the code signing certs. I mean, there's a lot of barriers to entry to get one to load on a modern Windows machine. So hackers will, back in the day, they used to make malicious drivers all the time. Back in the XP days, it was a big thing. Got too hard now. So all they do now is they just go find. We found a ransomware operator using a Toshiba power savings driver. They found an exploit in it, and then they just exploited it, got in kernel land, and did their dirty work by and the EDR just can't see that. It doesn't work that well in that kernel space. So they're really advancing their tactics and doing funny stuff out there. And we've actually kind of done some research into that. And it is kind of surprising out there how many vulnerable drivers are just sitting there that can be loaded on any computer. So it's kind of like, it's going to be a big trend coming into 25 is people just abusing, living, what do they call it? Living off the land with drivers or something. I can't remember what the new term is for that one. Back in the day, the term was like living off the land when people were just using PowerShell and just command prompt and just doing things in memory bypassing. Now they're living off the drivers these days. So it's been a huge issue going on. Next is the ransomware review here. So speaking on that, and I was talking about the Clio breaches and the Clio vulnerabilities. Now the Clop ransomware group jumped on that instantly, and they have been the most prolific group. Kira we've caught a bunch. They attack more of the SMBs into there, but the Clop one really took advantage of the Clio vulnerabilities out there. And what they're doing is these vulnerabilities come out so fast. There's always security researchers out there that want to look good on X, almost said Twitter, but X, which is weird because people call me X. But on X, they always want to look like the cool guy out there, so they'll release, here's a proof of concept on how to do this vulnerability that just came out 2 hours ago. And it's like, oh my gosh, you had 0 time to patch, right? The time to patch is to be so cool. So they can jump on those vulnerabilities instantly and hop on. And then with the rise of ChatGPT, Claude, AI-powered coding tools, it's like, make me this. They'll just 2 seconds. They can come up with a script that will get them in there and then start exfilling your data. They're really good at taking advantage of those breaches. They're almost 100% reliable on critical vulnerabilities coming out. Now, ransomware and Kira, no, they will come in and they will mess around. I caught a Kira a few times in the past this year, probably about 3 or 4 times in the network, perusing around, and sometimes it sucks with us because we catch them too early. It's hard to attribute. It's kind of a weird dynamic. You want to have the stats of this was, the Kira group, or this was the Cloud group. But sometimes it's like, someone got in on an RDP server you didn't know had, put some tools down, poked around, and we stopped them. It's very hard to figure out who the hell that actually was on the other side. But Kira, they like to use the same playbook every time. So when we catch someone and we stop, we isolate the computer, we can actually see the tools they're dropping down. onto the machine. I'm like, oh, that's Akira tools. Because we've just profiled out all the tooling they like to use. And we caught them a bunch of times. They're the ones that like to exfil out to, they'll exfil data out to local, like US-based, like Microsoft machines. Like they'll get into somebody's Azure account, spin up a VM, and then they'll take and clone your data there, and then from there they'll clone it somewhere else. So they're very good at keeping it all US looking based, you know. So I can see why they're up there. Ransom Hub too. And actually, you know what, this is an old slide. We actually found out, we got some intel lately, the FOG and Akira group are actually the same group. We caught someone one time, and we found dual branding on accident in some of their tools. And when we took the ransomware sample that they put down that they were trying to mess around with, we were like, oh, you know, this is a dual brand. They have an Akira and a filed one. So this is kind of we found out they're actually the same. So they actually should be up there more. It's either the same or they just work closer together. And a lot of these people do that. They'll change names, they'll work together. It's crazy. And then Ransom Hub too, like hopefully we can see a downgrade in that. They're having internal issues. FBI tries to keep up on them. They'll take their dark websites down. You know, to be fair, you know, it's good to do, but all it does is just shift them to a new name. And they'll go to a new name. You know, it doesn't really stop a whole lot, because actually the people behind these, a lot of these ransomware groups, actually they run like software as a service, right? Like there's developers, there's support lines, there's tech support chats, you know, and then operators come and they'll be like, hey, can I work with you? And then they'll give the operator the package and they'll go do it. And so they're kind of like the on the ground troops. It's just, it works like a software company. They make their margins. They say, you ransomware from this much, I take 40%, you get 60%, but they call it all out. Yeah, it's crazy. So, yeah, it kind of makes me laugh sometimes, especially when they have tech support sites, customer support sites. So, all right, so here we go. Who's here in construction, engineering, manufacturing, transportation? Anyone in that vertical here? Okay, sleep well tonight. They're the most targeted that we see in MSPs right now. Huge, you know, you got to think about the success of all the payments that have been happening in construction and like the pipelines, and it really brought like a light to that industry of like, hey, these people they run on such razor thin, like, projects. They can't have this type of stoppage. So they're like, man, they're paying out all the time. Constructions, engineering, they don't like downtime. They'll just pay and move on. And so they've been hugely impacted. And then of course,
Don't worry about Jay though. He's a VP Solutions.
Oh, okay.
He's fine.
Okay, yeah. No, you're fine. Yeah, you're fine. You're fine. You're fine, I hope. I'm just kidding around. Onto that, and then the next one's retail, hotels, entertainments, and other people that really can't take much downtime, right? Because time's very much money there. What's creeping up, as you see, is MSPs, technology, telecommunications, and stuff. They're starting to go after MSPs. They're starting to realize MSPs have keys to the kingdom over hundreds of other networks. We've seen MSPs today. Luckily, almost every MSP we work with dog foods their own services. We've caught some that have been trying to get into their like IT glues and their network things, and become admins and the password bosses, and figure out that's where the keys to the kingdom for everything is. So I just hope they don't listen to this and go after MSPs more, because it is a good idea if I was a hacker.
All right, Jay, I'll call you later tonight.
Then here's the region, still heavily North America. Constant, we gotta stop paying, guys, we gotta stop paying. It's hard. I've been on so many calls from MSPs bringing partners that just got ransomware in, and they'll be like, hey, we gotta protect this network now. It's like, well, you should have thought of that before, but let's go ahead and deploy. And then they're like, well, can you just hop on the insurance calls and all that? And I'm just like, the stuff I hear hopping on those calls, yeah, people more willing to pay, for sure. And I get it. I get both sides. So, yeah, still heavily targeted. Europe, Asia, South America, not too much. Unfortunately, for some reason, Russia never gets targeted. Magic. So let's move on to our next topic about what is good enough cybersecurity, or what good enough cybersecurity no longer means. The basics that are out there. Why I looked at that's a great DV Solutions is a great pamphlet there. I was reading it on their Security Plus package. The good enough needs to come up a lot more. So here's like the cybersecurity maturity model that almost all companies kind of go through, right? You start, maybe you're coming in, you're a new client of DP Solutions or one of our partners, the MSPs. You're probably coming in the underprepared phase, right? You might be coming in at reactive. It depends on how much smarts you guys have internally, how much stuff you're struggling with. But yeah, you really need to move yourselves up these models, and this is why the vCISO solutions out there, getting Security Plus packages, really thinking about I can't just be, and also listening to the MSPs or your MSPs, the managed IT services support on what you should install, and not trying to drive the security conversation a lot. I see that a lot. I've hopped on thousands and thousands of calls for MSPs to the end client, and they're always like, well, I don't need any of that. Can I just sell me a web root and manage that? And it's just kind of like, why you don't, you can't really do that. It's like, it's fine if you want to keep in that reactive phase on it, but there's so much more else to it, going into like the left and right of booms. How much security posture, exposure, if you don't know what's out there, how can you even protect what's out there? There's so much that goes into keeping left of boom. And this is kind of why cybersecurity services really work very well with managed service providers, because there's so much to do left of boom. There has to be more personalized managed IT service to someone you trust. I'm twice removed from the customer. I'm on that line or right of boom, right? That's where I'm looking at right now. I'm here to boot hackers out, keep them out, and empower the MSPs to make you guys left of boom. That's how you guys really move up the cybersecurity maturity model. Then you become anticipatory, You'd be like, oh, new Clio, like I was talking about, Clio breach came out. Bam, we tell them, they patch, done. We're anticipatory, right? So it's all about moving up the maturity model, Shane. How was my time looking?
Keep going.
Okay. Sorry about that. Because I could skip over this. This part gets a little nerdy. And I want to show kind of like, here's an example of the typical thing I've seen of people come in, they're like, I just need EDR installed. I just need SentinelOne. Now here's something here's an example of why that don't work anymore. So this is a hacker we stopped that was abusing Microsoft Intune. If you guys are familiar with Intune, it's like a way you can manage your Windows computers with Microsoft 365. I bet you guys probably use that for everyone's computers here, or will be for the prospects. And it lets you to manage, autopilots, resets. You can do configuration management. It's a really good tool to use for that. But it has hooks into every single endpoint computer. So we saw threat actor compromise an identity account. Could have been, we didn't have eyes on it at this time. It could have been from some credential theft, could have been a token stealing, could have been adversary in the middle like I was talking about. They somehow got access to an account that was actually an admin of this, or some type of privileged user role inside Microsoft 365. That let them move over to an Azure cloud support account that they had. So they commandeered like a service account after that. So they weren't using the main account anymore, right? Because a lot of eyes on that one. Sometimes there's not too much eyes on whatever Azure cloud support account is. So they went over there, modified it, gave it global admin privileges to do almost anything in the Microsoft 365. So you're thinking, great, now my Microsoft 365 is probably breached. Well, let me tell you what they can do on your computer in Microsoft 365. They actually made up a custom remediation script. So Microsoft Intune lets you run remediation scripts, which is actually a script that it's a weird feature there. I guess it's probably there so you can, it's probably an answer to them trying to capture RMM space. It's odd thing to do, but it can run custom scripts. So what they did is they were like, oh, okay, let's put our PowerShell, malicious PowerShell here, run it on every computer, every day on this machine. And you got to imagine when the AVs or even Defender, they see, Intune's running a PowerShell script, they're tuned not to be too loud on that, right? Because you can only imagine the false positives that could happen from that. So you got to think, traditional EDRs are always on that line of false positives, too much information, and actually being actionable enough. So when this stuff happens, they usually trust it into that one. So they did that. So luckily, we were on the endpoint. We weren't in their identity yet. So we were able to alert on the suspicious PowerShell script that was launched. We found out it came from Intune. And then we were like, hey, we called the partner up and we're like, you guys got to get on our Microsoft ITDR, 365 MDR, like now. We're almost 100% sure this came from Intune. It came from your 365 environment. So they went out and deployed us to that one, and all of a sudden we got alerts up the wazoo about this one logging in from weird suspicious places, weird VPNs that they don't use, all this fun stuff going on. So we're able to really knock them out of that thing. And this really shows you that new attack surface of going from the cloud to the endpoint, just from compromising one identity. Our identities have a lot of rights these days. You got to think too, a single sign-on. I mean, it's beautiful stuff. I love only having one sign-in, but man, someone got my single sign-in account at BlackPoint, holy moly, it's so connected to like everything, and so you really got eyes on the identity. Identity is key onto that, so. Here, so let's end it here. I got some AI predictions here for 2025. AI's it's a good thing, and it could be a bad thing, just like RMM tools, just like all your MSP tools, right? Good thing, can be a bad thing. Onto that, we use it a lot in our SOC just to make the SOC faster, specifically in an identity space, because you got to think how hard it is to protect an identity, because that's like it's the new RDP open to the internet, right? Your identity. Anyone could just start attacking Microsoft, figure things out, password breaching and stuff. So the AI-driven automation by the adversary is something we see a lot. They're very good at it lowers the barrier of entry for people to come in and start trying to compromise accounts. And there's big markets for those out there. So, these people have AI build them brute forcers or, really good looking web pages that look at Microsoft logins, they capture your stuff, then they go sell the credentials, right? That's a very common way ransomware operators buy access to your guys' networks. And now, just lower the barrier of entry for that. So you can imagine now the pool of credentials that can be picked from to do that. So identity-based attacks, huge onto that one. We also seen a huge rise in info stealers and browser exploitation. I don't know if you guys have seen this or fallen for this, so that fake CAPTCHA issues lately, where people, you'll go to a website and they'll be like, oh, you need a CAPTCHA here. So, press copy, paste it into your Windows command run line, and it'll give you the code to type back into the website. Well, little you know, when you type that, when you copy that and put it into your run command, it's launching info stealers in the background. That's grabbing your histories, your cookies with your tokens, all your stuff right off of your machine. It's been very effective. We catch probably 5, 10, 16 of these a week of people just putting them in and doing that. So AI-fueled exploitation is another big one. We actually utilize some of this on the reverse side. So when we find things like what I was telling you about, we stop a ransomware operator, we get their tools, we find something new in there. We use AI a lot actually to break it apart, figure out what's going on. Is there an exploit in this ransomware? Does this ransomware have built-in keys? Did they use the driver? Where was the vulnerability in the driver? Like that Toshiba one, we went right to Toshiba and told them, and they were like, thanks, and they fixed it up. And so now they can't use that type of thing anymore, and they revoked the old driver to not be able to be loaded. So it's things like that. It actually helps us on the other end too. But it could help them. And then a big one I want to go to here, because the probably running out of time, is posture management. I think that's probably going to be number one 2025 prediction, is knowing your security posture out there. Looking like they're talking about doing assessments, left of boom stuff. This is all left of boom stuff. Making sure you have MFA accounts enabled everywhere. Your conditional access policies are good. MFA is good, but it's not enough, right? These days, anyone can log on a website and accidentally put it in. It happens, right? It's going to happen. So posture management's huge. Just knowing your attack surface and what can be done. So I think that's something that's really going to have to do it, and how AI can actually fuel that one. So wink, wink. In the future, I think AI is actually really good to help out posture management. Because again, it's always good at empowering the human and assisting them better. So that's a little cyber briefing here. Hope you guys sleep well. Thank you on that one. Hopefully I didn't take too much time. I forgot to turn my timer on.
Next we have Ryan from Rhone Risk. Okay, so as we said, we can't eliminate risk, right? So we have to protect people on the downside for sure. That's where Ryan steps in. So Ryan, all you.
Thanks.
You got 2 minutes.
I'm telling you, I've been staring at this coffee for like 10 minutes. Never, if you're giving like a panelist thing, never put the coffee across the room from you. Right. Have it next to you. Who's gonna take a sip? So as Ken was explaining, I am an insurance agent, and I think insurance is a scam. So and the reason why, the reason why I say that is because if you're not approaching insurance very systematically, and if you don't have the right partner, it really can become that problem for you. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of gotchas in insurance, and there's a lot of reasons why a lot of people have some type of, I would say, adverse thoughts about, God, that's a hell of a tan. Holy shit. I'm from Florida, so we try to get sun when we can, but God, I need to work on that. So, there's a lot of reasons why people hear insurance and are like, oh my God, like really, I got to do this. And the reasons why is because there's just gotchas at every step of the way, right? If we look at applications, quoting, receiving the policy, and then when you guys have an incident and you have to file a claim, it just feels like it's like slow and pulling teeth. And am I getting the right advice? Am I really am I really working with somebody that has my back? Am I really working with a carrier that is going to have my back, or are they going to be looking for ways to not pay my claim, or who am I partnering with? And so these are all things that lead people to feel very negative around the insurance conversation. And so that's kind of what I'm going to be addressing here is really how lucky you are to be working with a company like DP Solutions. I mean, I'm telling you, the stuff that Ron was going over in the beginning, if you guys have that deployed, I mean, that is, we work with, so I founded Rhone a year and a half ago. We work with over 150 IT companies, MSPs, like DP Solutions across the country. That's top-notch stuff right there. So you guys should feel really comfortable about who your partner is, because that is incredible. So yeah, I really want to just talk to you guys about the gotchas. I'd like to hear some feedback, honestly, if you guys are involved in the insurance conversation at all, and then provide some advice on how we can kind of address that. Yeah, you're good. So out of just everybody that's here, who is involved? Are you guys involved in the insurance conversation at all? Filling out the application, dealing with that? Just show of hands real quick. Okay, cool. Isn't it fun? So when it comes to the application, what we see a lot of times is the insurance agent is typically just forwarding it off to the client, and they're leaving it up to the client and the MSP to fill it out, right? And I find that very odd, because out of the three stakeholders in that, MSP, agent, client, the agent is the one that's probably, or supposed to be most aware about what the questions are being asked, what the answers are supposed to be, and yet they're saying, MSP figure it out, and the MSP's like, well, yes, the client does have this, but we're doing it a little differently. And then the client's like, I don't know, I have an MSP for this, I don't know what they're asking. This is Chinese to me. And so when it comes to that piece, it's really important that the agent is the translator. And frankly, here at Rhone, the way we see it is we should be taking on the attestation liability, not the MSP, right? We should be the ones that's saying, hey, carrier, we have reviewed their tech stack. We have talked to the client. We have, seen these things. And so, yes, we see that they have EDR, or we see that they are encrypting data at transit, but they're doing it this way, not that way. And so these are the things that the agent should be taking on. And so, that's right off the bat, that's the first gotcha, because and this may be, a question later on in the thing, but one of the worst things that we've seen, and I won't say the particular carrier that's known for this, but Travelers, but is they get to the claim and it's like, oh, well, you told us MFA is on 100% of your customers, and we saw it's not activated on this one email account. It's like, are you kidding me, man? Like, sometimes it gets turned off. If they have to work on the account, like it's not always perfect. And so, these application gotchas are the first things that need to be addressed. And in our opinion, the agent should be taking the responsibility of making sure that that's validated and confirmed, and speaking that to the carrier and saying, hey, we are going to take on the liability of this, of making sure that when we turn this application into you, we have seen this and we have validated this. So that's the application part. Everybody with me still? And then now we're at the quoting part, right? And so this kind of goes towards your current policy and your potential new policies and quotes. Where we see the problem here is that it is and Xavier actually was touching on it. It's like, are you doing good enough? Like, what's good enough? And it's like, nobody is having the conversation about what is the maturity of my current insurance policy? Is this a good policy? Is this a bad policy? I have no idea. I've known this carrier forever. And so, when it comes to quoting and looking at your current policy, we really need to be assessing what is the maturity of your current policy? And that gets down to the language of the policy. And so, fortunately and unfortunately, I have been reading cyber insurance policies for over 10 years. And so the things that I've seen are out of control. I was reading a policy, and now thanks to AI, it kind of helps me a little bit here, but that we use a local AI that we've built, and it's kind of my brain dumped into this machine that is Ryan 2.0. And so, but I'm reading these things, and this was an $80 million law office, 250 lawyers out of Minneapolis, and their current policy, they had data restoration, right? That's when your data is compromised and they have to pay to get your client's data back up and running. And it had an exclusion in it, and the exclusion was saying we will only pay for PII, personal identifiable information, but no PHI or biometric or anything like that. And this is a law firm that specializes in healthcare facilities. I mean, do you know how expensive that mistake is? That is crazy to me. And so it's these little gotchas that drive me nuts. And that's kind of why I said the scam part, because it's these little things that it's like, what is the intent here? What are we trying to do here? And so when you're going out to quote and you're assessing, what carrier you're going to move to, make sure that you have an understanding of where you currently stand, because hey, you could be paying $2,000 for a policy, but that thing could be worth less than the piece of paper it's written on. And so make sure you're really addressing that maturity piece. And that takes a big policy analysis, because then you'll understand, is the money that I'm putting into this policy worth the coverage that I'm getting? And if not, how can we make that most efficient? That's a big piece of the quoting aspect. Another big piece of that quoting aspect that starts to move into the policy is, how can I leverage my tech stack and get the most return out of my investments here? And like I said, you guys are very lucky to be working with DP Solutions, who also leverages BlackPoint. We took BlackPoint to a bunch of carriers who have vetted BlackPoint, and they said, hey, if they have BlackPoint, they can get 12% premium reduction right out the gate. And if they're with DP Solutions, you can take that even further. And so what we've done is we've been tying what DP Solutions is putting into their security stack for you all and bringing down premiums with that. And so we can show that to you instead of just being like, hey, here's a quote. We can say, hey, these are where you're getting the premium reductions. We can tie your investments to that. And that is something I've worked on that for 5 years. So making that come to light was huge. A lot of iterations of trying to make that happen. So that's something that I feel like is very valuable to people, because Now you're not just looking at cybersecurity, compliance, and an insurance in two different scopes, right? It's all under one scope. Hey, if I need to address the NIST framework, what is this solution going to address my compliance as well as my insurance? And so now we're bringing the conversations together, and frankly, you're bringing the budgets together, right? And a good example of that is, this was a very extreme example, but this was an MSP out of Illinois, very close to the Iowa border. They were paying about, they're a very large MSP, but they were paying about $260,000 for their cyber insurance. Now, that was a $10 million limits policy. Like I said, very large MSP. But because they had BlackPoint installed, we were able to, in a few other controls, we were able to bring that premium down to $90,000, as well as increase the coverage. And so, and if you look at that, they're like, okay, we've reduced our premium by a ton of money. How can we take that money and reallocate it towards other solutions? How can, should we take this money and get a pen test done that year? What are the things that we can reinvest in the cybersecurity side? And so now you start to use it, I call it it's like a paradox type of thing, but you start to see, okay, now I'm starting to balance out my 4 domains here and really trying to make the most of my dollars, right? So that's a huge piece that I think, if you guys are clients of DP Solutions, you should really leverage here. And I kind of already addressed on the policy, and I'm shortening a 50-minute speech into 10 minutes here, so I'm trying to make it fast. But I already addressed the policy analysis piece, but I just want to reiterate, it's very important that you understand the maturity that you have compared to the price that you're paying, because it's a coverage that is not apples to apples all the time. It's a very nuanced coverage. If I pulled up our policy analysis for you, which I can send to everybody after this, I mean, it's lengthy because of not just the coverages, but the wording that we assess as well. And the famous saying that I always tell my clients is, hey, the policy is 120 pages for a reason, right? The first 2 pages is your deck page, right? They're giving you the coverage, and then they're spending the rest of it taking it away. So, and it is. And it frustrates me, It's like people are like, "Why are you in insurance?" I'm like, "I hate it. That's why I can't stand it." And then, there was Xavier touched on this a little bit, but I like the term X-Man. That's pretty cool. I'm jealous you have that. Yeah, right. I actually got that comparison the other day. I was like, damn, that's pretty good. I'm doing something right. And then you got the claims piece, which is pretty wild, and you kind of touched on it there, where you've been on some calls where people have been ransomed, and it's very frustrating sometimes. And this gets back to, this all ties into the policy as well. But when it comes to the claims piece, a lot of problems that we see is that if I were to ask a lot of you guys, what would you do in the event of a cyber insurance claim, right? What is the first step? And it's like, call the number, I don't know. And if you ask your agent, they would probably say, call the number, which to me is kind of like a lackadaisical way of approaching a claim. It's very, cyber is not that straightforward. It's not like you got into a car crash and you know that you have to call Geico, right? It's a cyber claim, and like you mentioned, it happens, it starts small. This is not like a immediate thing. It's, hey, it starts here, and then 6 weeks later they start going over here, and then they start deploying malware, and it's a very slow moving thing sometimes. And so, you know, what I recommend and what we implement is having a claims advisory team that understands how carriers think and understands the threat landscape. And so we have an in-house cyber threat intelligence team that's led by a gentleman who built out the threat intelligence team for a carrier called Coalition, which we don't really work with them anymore. But he understands what a claim is and how to approach it. But we also work in tandem with DP Solutions and BlackPoint, where it's like, okay, what can we do here to make sure that this is handled? And if it's a problem, let's go to the carrier, let's put them on notice. If it's an easy fix, let's make it an easy fix. But let's make sure that this is taken care of and not something that, you know, it tries to get the client tries to handle on themselves or bury their head in the sand. And then 6 weeks later, it's a massive, massive deal. And so that's, you know, from a gotcha standpoint, that's really the thing that really drives us home. It's like, okay, let's make sure that in the event that something's going on, that we contain it and we have the right consulting advice for our clients to make sure that, you know, they don't get popped for a full loss, full limit loss here. So, you know, all in all, obviously from cradle to grave, from application to claim, there's gotchas along the way, and so it's really important that you guys work with somebody that is going to handle a lot of those things. But you know, I will say I work with a lot of IT companies, and you guys should feel very comfortable that you're working with DP Solutions. But you know, something that we are doing, you know, I'm more than happy to, if you guys have an insurance policy, obviously we can talk about this more, but you know, we're happy to do a full maturity analysis on it for you all, and provide that for you. Go ahead.
Ryan, let's assume a client has a threat and the client pays the bad guys. Mm-hmm. Is there a way your team can investigate who was paid and then potentially go against them? So
that's an interesting question. He was mentioning Akira earlier. You know, we do have FBI and you know, Secret Service liaisons that we work with, and that starts to get into their scope. So we wouldn't go after the threat actor. Now, when we are in the negotiations and stuff like that, and figure out if we are going to pay, yes, like that is a full conversation that's being had. And it's funny that I mean, these people, they have HR departments. Like, these are like companies. And so you're like chatting with them, and it's like the weirdest thing ever, because you're like, you know, you're pissed at them, but you're like talking to a company. It's so odd. But yeah, that would get outside of our scope, going after them. That would fall more into you know, a government thing. But you know, during the negotiations, there are levers that we can pull to kind of play with them a little bit and piss them off. Go ahead.
I just want to say everything you said resonates with me in terms
Awesome.
of the agent relationship.
Yeah.
And I think ours is, she handles all of our insurance. She seems like an intermediary on the cyber side.
Yeah.
We don't have enough in-house insight and knowledge about our IT system. We rely on DP's network, but it sounds like there's another level of analysis. So I'll take your business card.
Yeah, absolutely.
In our policy, I'd be happy to explore that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's good to hear. But yeah, it's true, right? Like, cyber is a different animal than any other coverage that exists. And so that's a conversation that's had a lot. It's like, I have somebody that handles my insurance, but they do my cyber as well, and I just don't feel like the knowledge is there, which is perfectly fine, you know. And so
we would extract that. You wouldn't necessarily work with our broker.
Yeah, I mean,
Or a separate relationship.
yeah, Ideally, yes, because we like to have our hands on it now. We do have an in-house brokerage that can, work with your broker, but yes, we are a retail agency, so we do work with clients directly, ideally. But we can work around that if we need to. Is there a hand up?
And I think it's an interesting approach. Like we get contacted by a lot of insurance companies. And it really always feels self-serving in that regard. I think the benefit from a business standpoint is that there's full kind of transparency from A to Z. So when you have a partner who's validating the attestation, that actually is helpful to us because we're not insurance people. But we'll tell you what's in your environment, what kind of tools you have, but what is the impact of not having the right insurance? So having a good partner who's really in it to make sure that your risk is reduced and you're benefiting from doing the right thing from a policy standpoint is hugely important. And knowing that there's someone that's actually going to hold your hand through that process, because that's what they do. I know Michael is a lawyer on corporate, what is it? Business law. Business law, right?
Business law.
They'll help you do the law thing.
Yeah.
But the tactical things is really helpful. And I know, Ron, you had a couple things to add.
So I want to give you all two scenarios that we had. These are real case studies that we've run into in the past year, give or take. One involves BlackPoint and how it helped. The other one doesn't involve BlackPoint. So both were clients of DP Solutions. One was construction, I believe. I think they were construction. They were construction? Yeah. So they're at the top of that list. So global admin, anybody not know what a global admin account is? In 365 tenant, it is the ultimate keys to your kingdom. They have power to do anything in your environment that they want. Okay, so that's why if you don't know what a global admin is, that's good because that means you're not one. A global admin inside this company refused to put MFA on her account. Okay, yeah, exactly. So what happened is that bad guys were knocking at the door. We said, hey, put MFA on your account. She said, no. We went to the owner. Oh yeah, go ahead and do it. We put it on there. She's a global admin. She could take it off. She did. 2 days later, she was hacked. They went in and took out their SharePoint. They wiped out SharePoint, deleted it. Now, SharePoint is backed up on many, many servers from Microsoft. We got it back within a few hours, but they were down, construction company, down for 3 hours, SharePoint alone. On top of that, ransomware spread through 40 of their systems, give or take. We had to manually pull out 40 systems, bring them back to our office, re-image from scratch. And they were totally down for, I think, about 14 days, off, give or take a little bit. After that, they still refused to do MFA. So, their forensics team and their insurance carrier were on the phone calls with us, and I'm not sure if you were on that call with Aaron, with part of our security team over here, Aaron, where the insurance carrier is saying, you don't have MFA on your systems. No, well, your policy says you do. So that's between them. So as far as them, they paid part of, they didn't pay all of everything. They paid, it's Bitcoin. You're not going to track Bitcoin. Maybe the FBI has got some tools that can do that. We work with the FBI as well. We have the cybercrime unit where we'll report incidents, things like that, along with if anything the BlackPoint guys do. We'll report things, but it's more reporting. We don't work with agents or anything like that. We've taken phone calls with certain ones and dig a little bit deeper. For that incident, we did work with the FBI, along with the forensic team, and they end up paying. It was well over 100,000. So luckily it wasn't in the millions, but $5 million policies these days, that's nothing. You need a lot more than that. So that's scenario one. Scenario two, this happened over day before Christmas this past year. Client did not have BlackPoint at the time, and that other client, they didn't have it MDR. We weren't even partnered with BlackPoint at the time. Christmas Eve, it was a law firm that we have down in DC. They did not have BlackPoint. It was a simple user clicked on something and put in her credentials and everything, and then she left for the day. Unfortunately, when she left, she went to the hospital. We could not track her down. We got alerted by our NOC, our Network Operations Center, that, hey, there's just some weird activity on her computer. We isolated her computer. We threw BlackPoint on there without even permission because it helps us. There's an MDR portion to it where it dug into everything. They were down for half an hour. That's it. They were down for half an hour. So that's what BlackPoint did for us right there. And that could be any MDR really, but that's what the MDR did for us. It isolated everything that fast. So putting in creds and everything, they're both the same. She was a global admin on her account as well, but they didn't get in to do any damage. We put BlackPoint on there, it cleaned it up, and it found traces of ransomware on other systems, and it cleared those out for us. And it isolated those, and we had SentinelOne and a few other things. Now, our techs were involved for probably about 8 hours total. Christmas Eve, keep that in mind. It was about 7 o'clock on Christmas Eve. So techs got involved. It was a trial account that we had with this client on BlackPoint, and the SOC still helped us out. Normally, on a trial account, they just let you know. And just kind of show you the alerting and everything we have is that as far as BlackPoint is concerned, and I'm just going to read this because this came in. This is one of our critical alerts from BlackPoint. Came in a little while ago, and that company's in this room, so I'm going to be talking to y'all briefly after this. This is actually not a bad one, but this is one of the alerts, okay? We know this is not bad because we know the organization and how they travel internationally a lot. This is successfully authenticated Microsoft 365 account to Pakistan. Okay, somebody's shaking their head and she probably knows who I'm talking about.
Yep, that's me.
So yes, but that's it.
Our dev team.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. And it's a tech account that we know that's part of their dev team, and we know where they're at. So all we have to do is we got this alert. It came in as a critical for us. We already took notice of it. We already notified BlackPoint. It says clear that country. It's fine. It's legit. But that legit email came in as a critical for us, and we've already cleared it and no issues whatsoever. Now, if that was not cleared, we'd be on the phone. It's like, do you have anybody over in Pakistan? No. The one from North Korea this morning when we called the client, do you have anybody in North Korea? I don't even know where North Korea is at. Actually, she really didn't. She thought it was by, northern part of Japan, but close. But that was a legitimate one as well. So we were able to block that, clear the user, reset passwords, MFA, and all that stuff, and no harm was done or anything. So that's how fast the alerting is. So, yeah. Anyways.
Great, awesome, thank you.
Feel free after late until 11 o'clock, talk to people, network.
Security compromises.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Back there. I guess we should go to the projects weekend. Remember we were going to do the QBR originally.